Hey everyone, welcome back to another deep dive. It looks like you guys have been busy sending us all sorts of articles about this this new Grok 3 thing.
Yeah, Grok
Going.
3. There's definitely a lot of buzz about it out there, especially with all of Elon Musk's claims about it being the next big thing in AI.
Right, like the world's smartest chatbot and all of that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, some people aren't quite so sure. So we're going to help you figure out what's what with Grok 3.
And I think one of the articles that you sent over really gets to the heart of the matter.
Mm-hmm.
This one from Korea, Grok 3 controversy. Benchmark, is it a marketing tool?
Oh, yeah, that's a great one. I love that title.
Mm.
And it really seems like everyone is kind of hung up on these AI benchmarks, with Grok 3 and Elon Musk really pushing those as like, the be-all, end-all proof that it's the smartest chatbot out there.
Right. And this is kind of a problem, I think, in the field of AI these days.
Oh, yeah.
Benchmarks are tricky. They're really complex, and they're not always a good way to judge how well something actually performs. It's like saying, a chef is amazing because they can chop vegetables super fast.
That's a great analogy.
It's, impressive, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they make good food.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, and even though Grok 3's, it's doing really well on these benchmarks, the article is saying it doesn't really seem to have that wow factor that, that some other AIs have been able to demonstrate.
Yeah, what makes it really stand out.
Yeah, exactly. Where's the sizzle? So
I think one of the things is that a lot of these benchmarks focus on very specific tasks. It's not always clear how those translate into, actually being useful in the real world.
So it might be able to solve logic puzzles really well, but can it help me write an amazing marketing campaign?
Right.
Or, help me navigate some kind of tricky legal situation?
Good guy. Okay.
Yeah, and that's where that AI critic, Ethan Mollick, comes in.
Oh, yeah, he's got a great point.
Yeah, he was comparing these AI benchmarks to reading a restaurant review.
Oh, yeah, I love that analogy.
Yeah, you go online and you see a restaurant with 5 stars. And then you get there, and the food's totally mediocre.
Totally. And it's the same with AI. You get these hyped up benchmarks, but then, it might not actually deliver in reality.
And it feels like we've been here before. Didn't we see this whole thing play out with GPT-4 and all of the, the hoopla around its benchmark scores?
Absolutely. And it's a classic pattern in tech. Companies love to show off these amazing numbers.
Right.
But then when you look closer, they often don't really translate into real-world superiority.
So how do we avoid falling for this trap? How do we move beyond just looking at benchmarks?
Yeah.
And figure out, what an AI like Grok 3 can actually do?
Well, one thing to remember is that a lot of these benchmarks are like training a student for a standardized test. You can get really good at answering those specific questions.
Right.
But it doesn't necessarily mean you understand the underlying concepts.
I see.
And that's the same with AI.
So just because an AI scores well on a benchmark doesn't actually mean it's genuinely intelligent or that it can handle unexpected situations.
Exactly. And that's why we also need to think about real world testing and getting feedback from actual users.
Okay, so if benchmarks aren't telling us the whole story, then how do we get the full picture?
We need to see how these AIs actually perform out in the wild.
Right. Not just in some, controlled lab setting.
Exactly.
And that's where I think this thing called the chatbot arena comes in.
Oh, yeah.
The article talked about that.
That's a great example.
And it sounds so cool. It's straight out of sci-fi.
It kind of is.
Yeah.
So basically, it's this platform where humans can directly compare different chatbots.
Oh, wow.
And judge them on all sorts of things how natural the conversation flows, how creative they are, how helpful they are.
So it's like a real-time Turing test almost, where it's up to the users to decide which chatbot is the most human-like and engaging.
Exactly. And I think this is a really important shift in how we think about evaluating AI. It's not just about these cold, hard benchmark scores anymore. It's also about user experience and subjective judgment.
Yeah, it's you could have a car that gets perfect scores on a test track.
Right.
But how does it actually handle in real world traffic?
Exactly.
Right, that's what really matters.
Or on a winding mountain road in a snowstorm.
Right.
That's the real test.
And speaking of Grok 3, even though there's been all this focus on benchmarks and the lack of a single wow feature, even the article acknowledged that its rapid development cycle is pretty impressive.
Oh, they did say that, yeah. And it seems like XAI is just pumping out updates like crazy.
Right.
Much faster than like Google or Microsoft or any of the other big players.
And that speed is really interesting because it suggests that they have a really solid infrastructure.
Okay.
And they're really committed to pushing the boundaries. So it's possible we could see some pretty major breakthroughs from them in the near future. And they're also going the open source route with Grok 3, which I feel like is a pretty big deal.
Absolutely. Open source is huge for AI development. It allows for more scrutiny, more feedback, and ultimately, a more robust and trustworthy technology.
So it's like more eyes on the code to catch any like potential issues or biases.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's bring this back to you, the listener, for a second. You've got Elon Musk making all these big claims. You've got critics raising some valid concerns. We've got these benchmarks being questioned and all these new evaluation methods popping up. It's a lot to keep track of.
Yeah, it can get overwhelming.
So where do you go from here?
Well, I think the most important thing is to approach this AI landscape with a healthy dose of skepticism and critical thinking. Don't just take those benchmark scores at face value.
Okay.
Dig a little deeper look at real-world applications. Consider user experiences. And remember, AI is still in its early stages of development.
So it's like we're all pioneers exploring this uncharted territory. There's a lot of excitement, but also a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah, and with any new frontier, you're going to have some hype and some overblown promises mixed in with some genuine innovation.
Yeah.
So our job as, informed deep divers is to learn how to separate the wheat from the chaff.
So how do we do that? If benchmarks aren't the be-all and end-alls, then what are the best ways to judge the true capabilities of an AI like Grok 3? Like, what should we actually be looking for?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
I think we need to start by expanding our definition of what makes an AI successful.
Okay.
It's not just about raw processing power or performance on these isolated tasks. It's about things like...
I'm ready. Give me the scoop.
Well, for one, we should consider how well an AI can adapt to new situations.
Okay.
And learn from its mistakes. Can it generalize its knowledge?
Okay.
And apply it to different contexts?
So like it can go beyond just follow instructions and actually demonstrate some level of understanding and problem solving.
Exactly. And we should also look at how creative and insightful an AI can be.
Oh.
Can it generate novel ideas, make unexpected connections?
Interesting.
Surprise us with its outputs.
It's almost like judging an AI on its artistic merits, like how well it can paint a picture with words or, compose a piece of music or something.
I like that. And then, of course, there's the all-important question of real-world impact.
Right.
Can this AI actually help us solve meaningful problems, make our lives better?
Yeah. Does it actually, contribute to something positive and beneficial for society?
Exactly. It's one thing for an AI to be impressive in a lab setting, but if it can't help us address real-world challenges, then what's the point?
I'm thinking about things like healthcare and education, sustainability. These are areas where AI could really make a difference.
And that brings us to another crucial point, ethical considerations.
Oh, right. Yeah.
As AI becomes more powerful, it's essential that we develop and deploy it responsibly.
So even if an AI is, technically brilliant, we need to make sure it's aligned with our values and that it doesn't end up causing harm or perpetuating biases.
It's like the Spider-Man quote, with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah, exactly.
I know we need to ensure that AI is used to benefit humanity as a whole, not just a select few. And that requires careful thought, open dialogue, and a commitment to ethical principles.
Wow, this is a lot to think about. So it sounds like evaluating AI goes way beyond just looking at benchmarks.
It definitely does.
It's that real-world performance, user experience, creativity, societal impact, and ethical implication.
You got it. It's a multifaceted process.
Yeah.
And it's an ongoing process. Right. As AI continues to evolve, so too will our methods for evaluating and understanding its true potential.
So we need to stay curious, stay informed, and keep asking those tough questions.
Absolutely.
So it sounds like we need a whole new playbook for how we judge these AIs. We can't just be looking at, how well they do in some lab setting.
Yeah, we need to think more broadly.
Yeah.
It's not just about performance on isolated tasks.
So if we're ditching benchmarks as the gold standard, then what should we be looking at?
Well, one thing to think about is an AI's ability to explain its reasoning.
Okay.
Can it give us insights into how it's making decisions?
Oh, that's interesting.
That's really crucial for building trust. and understanding how these systems actually work.
Yeah, it's like the difference between just getting an answer from a calculator versus actually understanding the steps involved.
Exactly.
Transparency is key.
Absolutely. And another important factor is how well an AI can collaborate with humans.
Oh, okay.
Can it work alongside us as a partner, augmenting our abilities rather than replacing us?
Yeah, there's a lot of fear out there about AI taking over jobs. But if we can find ways to, make these AIs work with us, then there's a lot of potential there.
Huge potential. And, of course, we need to be mindful of the unintended consequences.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Even with the best intention, these technologies can sometimes have unforeseen effects.
So we need to keep an eye on that.
Absolutely. Constant monitoring and evaluation are essential.
So it's like we need to be constantly checking in and asking ourselves, is this actually making things better?
Right. Are there any negative side effects that we need to address?
Yeah. Okay. So to bring it back to Grok 3, it sounds like the jury's still out.
I think so.
It might have potential.
Yeah.
But we need to see more than just benchmark scores. Before we crown it the world's smartest chatbot,
we need to see how it performs in real-world situations, how it interacts with users, what kind of impact it has on society.
And ultimately, it's up to all of us to kind of shape the future of AI, I
agree.
We need to be having these conversations, asking these tough questions.
Absolutely.
And demanding that these technologies are developed responsibly.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive into the whole world of AI evaluation.
Yeah, it's clear that benchmarks aren't the whole story.
No, they're not. And as always, there's so much more to explore. But for now, I hope this has given you a better understanding of how to think critically about AI and what to look for beyond the hype.
Remember, it's an ongoing journey. Keep learning, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
Until next time, happy exploring.